Hey guys, it's me, Jess, here. I've been doing some personal development lately, and I felt really pulled to do this video, pulled by the fact that I was up until 2 a.m. Thinking about this and could not get it off my mind, and was kind of like, please God, if you let me go to sleep, I'll do this tomorrow. Because it just really, it's a lesson that I learned many years ago, things that I've worked on since then. So anyways, um, I just wanted to tell you about a friend of mine that I learned a valuable lesson from. And once again, I know I'm repeating myself. This is very uncomfortable conversation, so I'm just like, oh, I don't want to do this video, but I know I have to. Some of my biggest breakthroughs have gone through just pushing through something I didn't want to do to get to the other side. And, you know, part of me is like, I don't want this person to ever be forgotten about because they were a good person. And I think that there was just some things that he never expressed that was inside of him. And I just wish he could have gotten the help that he needed at the time. He tried really hard throughout the years to deal with his challenges. So anyways, once upon a time, I had this friend named Barry Hines, and we met because we lived in the same neighborhood. He was friends with another friend of mine that lived just down the block from me named Richie. And he was also like one of the skater kids that would, you know, come by and hang out and whatever. He was a really sweet kid, really nice, funny, all those things. Over time, I'd set him up with two of my friends. He was like always, if he didn't have a girlfriend, he was looking for a girlfriend. So I was at least a good friend in the fact that I introduced him to two different people that he had relationships with. But we were young. The first one we were in high school, and the other one was just barely adults. Anyways, but I have to tell you a funny story about him. There was where he saved my behind, y'all. This was like the best story. It's really the best story. So I had this friend over spending the night at my house named Christy. I don't think anybody that I know even knows her. She was a redheaded girl that I had met in high school in 10th grade in one of my classes. So anyways, so she'd spent the night over my house. We snuck out of the house because she had a boyfriend at the time that she wanted to meet up with. And so, you know, we were going to go meet up with him and I guess his friend. In hindsight, being an adult, bad idea. Red flags all over that. I would be totally panicked if one of my kids did that. But, you know. Anyway, so we snuck out of the house to meet these guys, got in their car, and we didn't get very far. The people that know where I lived in Seminole Heights know exactly where this is and that it wasn't that far from my house. So we were driving down Hillsborough Avenue, and we got pulled over by the cops right where Seminole Heights Baptist Church is. And it was like, it was late. It had to have been somewhere around midnight, okay? Because I had to wait for my mom to go to bed and go to sleep or whatever, and everybody in the house to be quiet and asleep, and everything's dark, and I could sneak out my window, but you couldn't come back in the window because those of you that know, my window was up really high because we lived in those old-fashioned wooden houses that were like up on stilts, so I couldn't like go back in there. I basically just jumped out the window and like ran down the alley and did all that stuff. But when we came back, we had to sneak in through the back door, which I had already unlocked. But you couldn't go out the back door because it squeaked. So I knew that if we came back in and the door squeaked, it was fine. My room was like right there by, you know, not far away. So anyway, so we get pulled over, and these cops put me and my friend in the back of this cop car. Great. Well, the one and only time I've ever been in the back of a police car. Thank God. So anyway, so they pulled us out. They probably saw the guys and saw us, and we looked so innocent. I mean, my gosh, I look like, I probably looked like a nun. I don't know, but I was very innocent looking as a kid, and I was very quiet and kind of shy. So I didn't look like, and I didn't seem like I was a person to do stuff like that. But I was a very rebellious, quiet person. Anyways, so they put us in the back of the cop car, and they're questioning the guys or whatever, and I'm telling her, like, look, we're sisters, this and that, like, we cannot go back to my mom's house, because I know they weren't going to arrest us. We weren't doing anything illegal, but clearly we were underage. And so, because I was like either 15 or 16, because like in the 10th grade I turned 16 at some point. So anyway, so I'm like, go with me, we're sisters, this is where we live, blah 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 blah, because I'm thinking in my mind, where can I go? Because I can't have these cops bring me and my friend back to my house where my mom is sleeping and knock on the door to return us. That can't happen. Like, I won't survive that. I just won't survive that. So I tell them that we live, I forget what the name of the road is that's on the other side of Central Avenue, but that's the street that Barry lived on, my friend Barry. And I knew that we could go there because his dad was doing a little time at the time for a white collar crime. It wasn't anything violent or anything like that, but it was a white collar crime, and the guy was doing some time for. So I knew that Barry was the only one living at this house. The downfall was I didn't know if he was having one of his parties or not, because oftentimes, like on a Friday or Saturday night, he could be having parties with people over, and you know what kids do. So I tell him we live at this house, he's our brother, all this stuff, and I'm praying to God we're not walking in on a full raging party. So, oh my gosh, tears in my eyes. So, he wasn't having a party. There was only one friend over. And Daniel Walsh, he was the only one that was over at the house. So we just really lucked out. So these cops knock on the door. There's like 2 cops knock on the door. And I'm like, hey, brother, like, we're home. So we go in. Barry totally plays it off. Like, if that would have been me, I guess I was just, I'm so, that I'd have been like, what? Huh? What are you talking about? And the jig would have been up. But he went along with it. And he was like, yeah, they're my sisters. My dad's gonna be really angry about this, this and that. He's like, I can't believe you guys did that, blah, blah, blah. So they let us go, and they go on their way. After they left, Barry was so mad. He was like, are you kidding me? Like, do you even realize what could have happened? Like, what you could have brought to my house just now? And I'm like, I understand that, I would have died. Like, if the cops would have knocked on my house, my mom would have answered, she would have killed me for sure. So I was like, look, I had to risk it. I had to take a chance. I didn't, if I knew for sure he was going to have a party, probably wouldn't have gone that route. But it was like a 50-50 shot. Thankfully, it worked out for us. So, as, like, he was like, you owe me. So, we had to come back, like, some day that next week. Me and my friend skipped school, went over his house, and cleaned his house from top to bottom, because that was like our way of paying him back. Because he was like, you owe me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'll do whatever, you know. So we went over to his house, cleaned it. I don't know how well of a job we did, but it was better than the squalors he was living in, being a kid living by himself. So I cannot believe to this day that we did that. And that's like the best thing I ever got away with. But I never snuck out after that. I was like, if I get out of this, I will never do that again. I've done some shady stuff, but I never snuck out again. Nope. So anyway, so I say that story to say that sometime later, I'd sent up with another friend of mine. So he started going with that crowd of people, which were all people I knew and hung out with and were friends with, but they all partied a little differently than I did. Let's just leave it at that, okay? They were a little bit more of a hardcore party crowd than I liked to be. So when those times came around, I just dipped out and did something else. So I had introduced him to that friend, and the two of them were on and off together for a while. And then one night, I want to say Guavaween, which here in the Tampa area, Guavaween was usually, I don't know if they even still do Guavaween because I left Florida for so long. Guavaween was usually a Halloween event that they'd have down in Ybor City, like the weekend before Halloween. And so some people dressed up, some people didn't, but it was a crowd, and it was like the thing to do. And it was the one and only time I ever went to Guavaween because I thought it was a crap show, keeping it PG. I didn't like, there was too many people, and you were just basically bumping elbows from one side of the strip to the other. It was just ridiculous. So anyways, so we went down there, me and my friend that I had set him up with, and then Barry, and then a couple of other friends. Went down there, and me and my friend rode together. Like, the girls rode together, the guys rode together. And my friend and him had, I don't know, gotten into an argument or something like that, or maybe they were on an off situation. I don't remember. But they were mad at each other. And I remember when we left, somebody had done something to my car. It wasn't permanently damaged, nothing like that. But somebody had done something to the driver's side of my car. And I thought, I just went right to, it must be him. He's angry with her, and he knows that she's riding with me, and he knows my car and all that stuff. So I got really angry with him. We went back to the house that we were all gathering at. And I remember when he walked in, I was just like, I kind of just went for the jugular. I was just like yelling at him, and I can't believe you did that to me. How could you? You know, this and that. Like, you can be mad at her all you want, but like, that's my car and this and that. And he kept saying, oh, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. And I didn't believe him. And he got so angry with me that it actually, you know, scared me that he was going to do something. I'd never seen him get in my face like that before. He was so mad at me, and I was so mad at him. It was like we were both ready to just explode. And that's the last time I talked to him. And I just remember being like, I don't ever want to talk to you again. Because I just knew in my heart, hindsight, who knows if he did or didn't. He could have, but he might not have. It was Guavaween. Like, there was like a million people there. So, like a couple years goes, no, a few years went by because he passed away in December of 1999. And I had just moved in with my boyfriend, which is now my husband. Me and Chris moved in together in April of 99. And the first friend that I had set him up with, Sarah, I don't think she minds me sharing her name, she had said she started running into him at this place that he worked at. And she would see him, like, I don't know, she went to this place like every week or she went there like almost every week or every couple of weeks, like on a Friday night or whatever. And she'd run into him, and he seemed like he was, doing really well, because he'd kind of go off the deep end and then he'd disappear or go to Texas where his mom was and kind of sober up a little bit, and then he would come back and he would be doing good, and then he'd kind of fall off the tracks or whatever you call it. So anyway, so she said he seemed like he'd been doing really, really well, and that, they'd just have small talk every time he went in there, and he was just like, oh, how's Jess doing? Please tell her I said hi, hope she's doing well. And when she said that to me, I was still so angry with him. Like, him and his dad had a business, just to backtrack a little bit, on Florida Avenue, and I used to have to pass it every day on my way home from work, and I used to see that van outside and be like, oh, just seething, just like, I'm so mad at you for what you did, and I can't believe you wouldn't even admit it, and blah, 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 blah. So, and I'm just, I don't know, I got that personality. I don't know if it's Capricorn, I don't know it's what, but like, it's like a pit bull on a piece of steak. Like, I can hold on to grudges until the end of time. And so I was just like, whatever, he can kiss it, for lack of a better word. Like I said, trying to keep it a little PG. But I really was like, tell him where, to stick it where the sun doesn't shine. And I really regret that now, because I remember it was like in the middle of the night, probably around, I don't know, we were in bed sleeping and the house was dark, and it was the end of December, and I got a call from Sarah saying, like, he's gone, he died. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? He died? Like, nobody our age dies. And she said, yeah, I went to his work, and I didn't see him, and I had asked somebody where he was, and they said, oh, you didn't know, he died, a few days ago. And so she went to his place where he was, and his mom and some of his family, and I think a girlfriend, was just coming back from the memorial service, and they said that he had overdosed, and they wasn't sure if it was a suicide or an accidental overdose, because that was back in the days before accidental overdoses was a thing. And we all knew that when we were younger, he had attempted suicide once before in Orlando, and so we didn't think he'd ever do that again, because he survived it, and it wasn't a pretty recovery. They basically had to put him back together again. But yeah, and so when she told me that, I'm like, sorry, I'm trying not to cry on here. Those of you that know me know I'd rather gouge my own eyes out with an ice pick than cry. So, yeah. So the next day, I remember you know, Chris left for work. I got Kate off to school, and I came home before I went to work, and I just cried and I prayed over him because I didn't know if it was a suicide or if it wasn't. But either way, I wasn't really strong in my faith, but I didn't know what happened to people when that happens to you. You know what I mean? Like, I was so young, I just didn't know what happened to you when, you know, you end your own life, or it's or you're responsible for your own death in some way. So I remember praying to God. And I cried. And then I went to work and was sad for a little while, and then eventually had to move on from it. But and I know now that he's in a good place, and he was in a good place, because I know more about spirituality. But I prayed for him for a long time. And I even remember after one of Chris's cousins passed away in an accident. This must have been when I went to this function. It was a James Van Praagh function, and he's a psychic medium, and he did a show in Atlanta, and me and my mom went to it. So it must have been 2004, because he had passed in 2003, I think. And so this was like either 2004 or 2005. Me and Mom went to this thing, and I was hoping to hear from my husband's cousin. And I remember James Van Praagh, we all did like a meditation to kind of start out, and he walks you through, like, you're in this park or you're in this meadow, and you sit down on this bench, and your loved one comes to you, and they speak to you, and they give you a loving message and all this stuff. It's just kind of visualizing you to kind of ground you and chill you out, because I'm sure when he comes out, everybody's like, I want to hear from my family, I want to hear from my family, you know. And I never got a message for that cousin. But when we went through that meditation, I couldn't believe who came through and sat with me on that bench. And it was Barry. And I'm like, what the heck are you doing here? I didn't drive to Atlanta to sit here in front of this famous psychic to hear from you. I was here for my husband and his family, you know. And but I'm like, I was surprised. And he just thanked me for my prayers, and you know, it was a good message and a good memory. So so recently it just came up, and then last night I realized that it's been 20 years since he died. 20 years. It'll be 21 years this December, because he died in December of 99. And I can't even believe that he's been gone that long. And it's amazing to me how the human mind works, how somebody could be gone so long, yet, you know, we can still miss them so much. But my point of this video is that I regret holding that grudge, because who the hell cares if he did that or not? Because like I said, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, who cares if he did? And what if he didn't? And that's why he got so mad at me, because he knew he didn't do that. And yet I just held on to that because I just thought I knew everything. And he had forgotten about it. He had moved on with his life. He was doing well. He had forgotten about it. When he thought of me, he wished me well. And I was just so caught up in the BS that I spent all that time with those negative feelings and being angry. And I wish I hadn't. So don't hold grudges with people. I know it's like in my DNA to want to hold grudges, but I really try to do the work on it to move on from it. Whether you think somebody did something to you, but you're not for sure, or they did. You know, even if somebody does something to you that's unforgivable, yeah, you're not going to be buddies with them, but at least let that go. You can't live your life holding this. It's like walking around with like rocks in a backpack that you're carrying around. It's just not good for you, and it's just going to make you sick, not that other person. And when it is somebody that you love and care about, think about, is it worth it? Is it really worth it to hold on to something that really doesn't matter? Because when they're gone, you can't ever have that conversation with them in person on this earth. You just have to hope that they hear your thoughts and your prayers. So that was the hard video that I had to do. I'm done with it now. And hopefully I can release it. Have a good day, everybody.